Hi, welcome back to our channel. Today we have some startling revelations made by Sajid Sadpara about a couple of days ago. He spoke about the events, what happened, because he was himself present with the team that is now missing, John Snorri, Ali Sadpara, and Juan Pablo. And the information he has given to one of the foreign news channels, there are some startling revelations. We probably would like to analyze as to what happened and what was the last possible location of the three missing climbers. On January 15, when the Nepalis were planning the summit push on K2, which was successful, John Snorri and Ali Satpara and Sajid Sadpara were in C2. They were doing their acclimatization drills, going up and down and hauling the loads up on the high camps. And on that night, on January 15, John Snorri sent Sajid up on C3, asking him to take some supplies to the high camp. And when Sajid crossed all the way to the Black Pyramid, and when he reached this low C3 at 7,000 meters, he met Sergei Mingote. He was there with a couple of other climbers. And Sergei asked Sajid that if you guys are going with the Nepalis for the summit push tomorrow. And Sajid was startled and surprised because they had no information about the Nepali summit push. And he came down, he told about the information he had gathered from Sergei, and they were all surprised. Now, this is something that comes as a bit of a surprise to us as well, because earlier we thought, and a lot of rumors were circulating that they had a bit of a argument with the Nepalis that they're supposed to go together or who's supposed to fix the route and all that. But apparently, with this information, what we gather is that they had absolutely no coordination with the Nepalis, and they were a totally independent team, both of them, and they were all following their own particular routes and high camps and gates and everything else. The next day, we know that Nepalis were able to successfully summit K2 for the first time in winters, and they came back, all of them. The second summit push started on February 4th. It's about, I think, there were around 20 people who gathered up at C3 at 7,600 meters. This is the actual C3, 7,600 meter, which is also called the Japanese camp. And there were about 20 people. Now we have been listening to the information that there were severe shortage of camps at C3 at that night, and also the oxygen bottles were missing, and a lot of gear was also missing, which was supposed to be supplied by the SST, the 7 Summit Tracks, which were the actual operator of the commercial expedition. Which now we know that it's all true, because Colin O'Brady, the American climber, he was there first with his couple of Sherpas, with his tent and gear and all that. And Tamara and Juan Pablo, who were teamed up together for this expedition, they had their own camp, which was a small two-person tent. And then Ali and Snorri, they had a camp of their own, Ali, Sajid, and John Snorri. And then there was another Sherpa tent. So in all, there were about 4 tents, which can possibly accommodate about 10 people. And there were 10 other climbers at C3 that night who were absolutely without shelter, and their life was at risk. So 3 of those climbers were sheltered by Ali and John Snorri in their tent, which means they had little space to lie down, to stretch their legs, to change gear, possibly if there was a need, to melt some ice for to make water, and to carry some water with them during the summit push. And obviously, they were not able to rest properly. At the night of 4th February, about 11:30 p.m., John Snorri was the first one to leave Camp 3 for the summit push, because he was the slowest. So what happens really is the slowest one goes a couple of hours beforehand, and then the faster ones follow him afterwards. John Snorri left at about 11:30 on February 4th p.m. and was followed by Sajid Sadpara, who was carrying oxygen for John Snorri and an emergency cylinder. At 2 o'clock in the morning on February 5th, Ali Sadpara was the last one to leave C3. Now, Sajid was the only one who was doing the summit attempt without oxygen. Ali and John Snorri both were using oxygen. Now, this is also the kind of information which was not available before. Now we know that John and Ali were using supplemental oxygen for the summit push. Sajid was the only one who wanted to do it without oxygen. And during their climb up for the shoulder, they met Thomas Rotter, the Slovenian climber who was coming back. And he said that there is a crevice at about 7,800 meters. This is roughly the place when you reach the shoulder of K2. This picture was taken by the Nepali Sherpas on January 15. This is the first time it was ever shot. This place was ever shot in winters. Nobody has been able to reach the shoulder of K2 before that. And from this picture, it is more than evident that this place is really uninviting. It's very hostile, as you can see, and it's very cold and bleak, and it gives you all the kinds of bad vibes. And just at the beginning of this shoulder, there's this crevice at 7,800 meters, which has not been there in the summers and never been reported before. But Nepalis did mention about it when they came down, and they had the information, and they did provide the information to John Snorri and Ali Satpara about this crevice. Now, this crevice was about 2.5 meters wide, and the depth obviously nobody knows. And it was a very long crevice, which means in order to cross it, you had to either go right of the main route, or you have to go left towards the Sesson to cross this crevice. But we know that John Snorri was very ambitious about climbing K2 for the first time in winters. And when he left the base camp last year, he was crying his heart out. He was obsessed with this expedition, with this attempt. And we don't know exactly who decided for the summit push, which was not the kind of weather window they had, which was very short and dangerous. But we're still not sure that who decided what. Now, Thomas Rota, when he came down, he told Ali Satpara and John Snorri that he was not able to cross the crevice, and so he's going down. And when Ali and John and Sajid reached the end of the crevice, they realized that there are no fixed ropes. And in order to cross the crevice, they had to go either left or right to find a possible bridge, snow bridge, so that they can walk through it, or fix ropes for it. And this is very interesting, because Sajid says that all three of them crossed the crevice by jumping across it. Now, this is 2.5 meters wide. They had no fixed ropes, there was no safety line whatsoever, and they just jumped over it. This is really suicidal. I don't know what were they thinking and what kind of mindset they were in, but they just went for it. And afterwards, when Sajid and Ali and John and Juan Pablo, when they reached the bottom of the bottleneck, they found a bit of fixed ropes over there. And they had the initial information that the fixed rope is going all the way to the summit. It starts from the bottom of the bottleneck. So the summit push started at 10 a.m. at the bottom of the bottleneck, where Sajid encountered this problem. He says that I had severe headache, and I was not able to physically perform as good as the rest of the team was doing. And at that moment, Ali Satpara told Sajid to take up a oxygen cylinder and to start using oxygen. And to which he followed, and he opened up because obviously they were all in mittens and big gloves because of the extreme cold at that point. Sajid was not able to properly operate this oxygen cylinder, and the whole oxygen was leaked out, and they were without a supplemental oxygen. There was just one emergency cylinder for John Snorri at that moment. And then Ali Satpara told Sajid to go down. He has to abandon the summit attempt. And he gave a radio to Sajid, and he told him to go all the way down to C3 and wait for them over there. This is the moment that Sajid was coming down. he was without oxygen, and he was not functioning well, probably because of the altitude, and he was also probably hallucinating. And he says that I reached C3 at about 4 to 5 p.m., which means that it took him about 7 to 8 hours from the bottom of the bottleneck to reach C3, which is ridiculous. I mean, he himself says that I don't know why I took so much time to reach C3, which means that probably he was hallucinating, he was going wayward, he was losing the track, and eventually he has to jump over the crevice again. And he says that I almost made it because I had my 1 foot hanging in the air when I landed on the other side, and I just made the jump with 1 foot. And he made it to C3 at about 5 to 6 p.m. And in all this time, he says that when I was about to jump the crevice, I looked around and I saw the bottleneck, and I saw all three of them have successfully made it to the top of the bottleneck. And from the top of the bottleneck, it takes about 5 hours to reach the summit if you have ropes already fixed, which were in place. The ropes were already fixed by the Nepalis, and Mingma ji has already mentioned that they have not taken out the ropes as they were accused before. Now, this picture, as you have seen, this is a high resolution picture, and the markings were done by us as well. Clearly mentions that the top of the bottleneck, the traverse takes about 5 hours to go on top. The most important and the most startling information that Sajid gave is the fact that the company, the Thuraya sat phone company, went through the call logs, and they have picked up a possible call that was being made by John Snorri at around 7:17 p.m. Now, this is the same time that possibly they have come down all the way to C3, and they were probably crossing the crevice, again, probably jumping across it. And but the company, the Thuraya company, is not sure that whether this call was deliberately made, and they also are not sure that to which number this call was actually made, and they are also not sure that actually if a call was actually made by John Snorri at this point of time. It could have been a system glitch. It could have been a pocket press, something like that. But there has been a glitch in the system, and the possible location of the sat phone was somewhere around C3, not exactly the C3, but somewhere close to C3, which means that they were probably crossing the crevice. And if we don't know that, but if there was an accident, if somebody fell in the crevice, and then probably they tried to make a call, and they tried to turn on the sat phone, it tried to call in for a search and rescue and all that. But and all this time, probably the company monitored a glitch in the system that somebody's trying to make a call. But this is bone-chilling information. This is something which is absolutely new, and during the search and rescue operation, that followed afterward, and there were a lot of helicopter flights and C-130 flights as well, and they scoured the whole region from where this sat phone call was made, because the company gave the exact location of the place where the call was made, and they made sure to scout the area to find any clues, but there were absolutely no clues of whatsoever. Now, there is no plausible explanation as to exactly what happened. Probably they were trying to jump across the crevice again, and during which they met this accident, because Sajid is for sure says that all three of them were in perfect shape, and they were the sun was shining, and they were feeling pretty good. They were quite optimistic about the summit. So it must have been an accident that actually happened, and the reason that they were not able to come down. There has been an argument going on, a discussion going on as to is it possible to actually retrieve their bodies in the summers. But if these crevices appear with passage of time and they disappear. Now, crevices actually appear because the glacier is always on the move, and it cracks under its own load, and these crevices appear when they disappear as well. So it could be possible if they have fallen in the crevice, uh, the crevice may not be there in the summers, and so there is no way to actually retrieve their bodies. But this is our take, a possible explanation of what Sajid, the kind of information Sajid has given us. And we certainly hope that all three of our friends and climbers would rest in peace. Thank you very much.